The piece is generated by sound. It's a map of a solar system that I started with by capturing one drop of water and actually capturing it as an object, and then taking that object and folding it up into a sphere. And that sphere became one of the initial maps to make the moon. And so you're just flying through this universe and hearing stories and music and body signals. Now that the Mayan calendar is ending, I thought, well, why don't I go to the center of the sun? So it's sort of a jukebox of sounds that I felt I would recapitulate if I were to, this was my last month on the earth. And that last pixel is Steve Jobs talking about death when he thought he had beaten death. For me, it's sort of like the Marshall McLuhan, the medium is a message. My background was in math and genetics, and when I got out of the university, I realized that so much of the creative practice was very mediated, not from direct observation, but more from explaining and exploiting ideas. So I wanted to reverse that, the ontogeny of that process of going from a phenomena to describing it, to explaining it, to exploiting it. And that Western culture had really accelerated in the late part of the 20th century to explaining and exploiting. Not really that much about observation. Language is bad code. The way we learn is through linguistic limitations. And we all speak different languages. Like right here, we know so much in common, but we're using a linguistic syntax that's limited. And I was very interested in spatial relationships and language that has to do with the way we work in the body, in information space, in the macrocosmic and microcosmic, and trying to use that creatively as a more common way to communicate. And so I think the crisis is the fact that at a certain point we abandoned spatial language for something that was linguistic, and this is a dominant way of understanding, and it's very limited. And you don't see the complexity of how things come together. It's just not in linguistics. That art was always part of the primary cultural record. That when you look back at a culture and history, that what the artist created was something that you used anthropologically to understand. And I had a crisis and thought, well, maybe art won't be the primary cultural vehicle from now on. Realizing that pedagogy was something that was really essential to creativity, that was really left out of the sort of the connoisseurship of the modern history. Most of the work of mature modern artists really was unchanged from what they played with in kindergarten. And so for me, a lot of what I'm investigating is what is it that we can play with that can help us have a broader umwelt or understanding of our environment and how we extend our senses into the universe. Yeah. I think that it can be exercised, just like your muscles. But I think creativity is something that has to be encouraged. I think humans are very creative, but a culture is something that can be very restrictive. I mean, you're like the most advanced supercomputer when you're an infant. The amount of learning that happens is phenomenal. Just we don't even understand how much and why we learn so deeply and so quickly. And it seems that decay is something that we need to work on. Every generation has to sort of learn more quickly now, and there has to be tools and pedagogy that helps us to do that, because for a long time things didn't change as much. Now things change so fast. You have to learn in a more rapid cycle. We start off as a simple sphere, and then we choose some form to take. We end up, we become bilaterally symmetrical, or all these objects have their biases. Yet none of them are perfect in understanding the world and the environment. There's always some trade-off. And so it's about that limitation of our perception. I'm trying to make a world inside a world so that people might remember sort of where we come from.